What if you could lead more effectively and go home on time? Welcome to the Lightbulb. I'm Zoe Thompson, leadership and performance coach, and each week I bring you 3 practical insights from my work helping impact-driven leaders transform from reactive to intentional leadership so they can finish work on time and take guilt-free time off, creating success that feels as good as it looks. Let's jump in. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you are tuning in for episode 26. I hope you are well. I hope you have had a good week and a good weekend too. I hope things are well in your world. I am bringing 3 very different light bulbs this week. The last couple of weeks, we've had some similar themes. We've had light bulbs that have worked really nicely together. This week, a little bit different. And I think that's probably mirroring the type of week I have had. I've had the drop-in with the business owners. We had the module 2 call for those that are on the Elevate Your Efficiency Leadership Program. This week, looking at time management and prioritization. So a really interesting discussion this week. They've watched the workshop, so we jumped together on a call to discuss what's come up for them, discuss how this impacts their world at the moment, and then also to talk through what next steps they want to take and how they want to implement what they've learned through the module this week. So pick up potentially on some of that during this episode. I had a great call with Breast Cancer UK, ready to plan the first in-person day, which will kickstart 12 months of working with their leaders. So really excited about that one. And no doubt I will be sharing more about that as we start to work through the program. Also had a couple of one-to-one client calls this week and 2 inquiry calls as well. One looking at working with me one-to-one, and they've signed up. So that's fantastic. Looking forward to working with them. And the other one looking at joining the next Elevate Your Efficiency program and potentially looking at joining our leadership community to bridge the gap between now and then, to give them that support, give them that space to come through and talk through their leadership and their leadership development. So been an exciting week. And also Thursday afternoon, I went to a networking event for HR leaders or those who work in organizations called the Wellbeing Workout, and was hosted by an organization that provide gym support as part of employee assistance programs. Really, really interesting event, an amazing location. For those of you who are in Bristol, you will know the Clifton Observatory, cracking venue, and it was such a lovely day as well. So I got there. I didn't make it for lunch because I had client calls booked in. So I walked up after my client calls and joined for the speaker sessions and the panel discussion in the afternoon, which was great. And then we went up to the rooftop terrace for networking. Canapes, drinks. I didn't drink, but canapes and drinks, and a great opportunity to stand around in the sunshine and meet other people who work in organizations and HR leaders as well. So yeah, it was a nice week. So let's get into the light bulbs for this week. And I think at least one of these is going to resonate with you. So the first light bulb came up in a one-to-one session. Not the first time I've had this type of conversation, and it certainly resonates with me. Light bulb 1 came up in a one-to-one session, and it's very familiar to me. And that's when we're more comfortable with chaos than we are with calm. And the client was talking through how they're just really comfortable when things are uncomfortable. They're familiar with the unfamiliar. Stability feels unfamiliar, which is kind of backwards. And they recognize that this isn't really how they want things to be. It's just this is how life and business have been, and they've got comfortable with it. And so when things start to calm down, they either feel that sense of anxiety because they're sensing or waiting for the next crisis, or they create something that makes things feel a little bit more chaotic. In the call, we were talking about anticipation anxiety and how fear or excitement before the event is higher than during events. This is why on a Friday afternoon, our excitement about the weekend, our anticipation for the weekend is much higher than a Saturday morning when the weekend arrives. And in the same way, when we are worrying about something that is happening, that anticipation is a lot higher than when we are in and dealing with it. It's why horror films work so well. That anticipation. So we get the music, we get that sense that something is going to happen. We don't know what is going to happen, but we're on high alert because we know, because of the way the film is written, the way the script is written, the music that comes with it, that sense that we know something is going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. So our fear or excitement levels go high. And then when the thing happens, you almost see everybody relax, like, okay, now we know what it is. And this is very familiar for people who work in an environment that is fast-paced, for people who are used to firefighting. They're used to being in crisis mode. And I know from my days in the police, I loved the fast-paced environments. I loved not knowing what was going to happen. I loved driving into work in the morning, not knowing what the day was going to bring. I loved the fact that you could have your day planned out and then something completely different would happen. I loved that. And so I found when I went into business and I was fully in control of my day, I felt bored. It felt slow. It felt so uncomfortable. And actually, when COVID happened, I felt that sense of excitement because that uncertainty was there. I felt that rush of that instability, not knowing, the uncertainty, and that crisis mode was was a familiar place for me again. And that excited me. I know it scared a lot of people, and absolutely rightly so. And I think there were a lot of things that worried a lot of us in that time. But that element of uncertainty, that chaos, really excited me. Now, I've been told that I was born when Mercury was in retrograde, which is why I love that chaotic feel, which is why I love being in that sense of uncertainty and instability and chaos. Now, it works for me. It's my comfort zone, but it doesn't mean it's the comfort zone of people that I work with. It doesn't mean that it's the comfort zone for the clients that I work with, or when I was in leadership, the team that I worked with. And so we have to have that awareness when we know that we love that place, when we love the chaos and the unpredictability of things, we have to be aware that not everybody around us is going to feel the same way. So what we need to be aware of is that we are not creating a crisis where one doesn't exist, that we are not seeking to keep that momentum going, to try and create a faster pace when it is either not needed or when it is not progress. Movement is not always progress. So we don't want that busyness. We don't want that reactive element to the work that we do if it's not actually moving things forward. We need to create the pause. We need to prioritize. We need to proceed with purpose. My 4 Ps. We also need to make sure we are intentional and purposeful about the action that we take. We don't want our team to be in a reactive mode. We don't want to create a message that says constant chaos is what we're looking for. And ultimately, the majority of people, even those of us who love the chaos, even those of us who love that fast-paced environment, doesn't necessarily mean we are performing at that high level. So we need to make sure that we are not taking on new projects just because things have slowed down a little bit or things are starting to stabilize. We need to make sure we're not creating urgency around non-urgent issues. We want to make sure that when we feel anxious because things are calm, that we don't share that anxiety with the rest of our team, or that we are interpreting that sense of calm and stability means that something is wrong or something is going to go wrong. And we definitely don't want to avoid the slow-paced, intentional, purposeful work because it feels slow. So when we recognize the pattern in ourselves, when we recognize that we are comfortable with chaos, and when we know that actually that might not be helpful to us a lot of the time, understanding that pattern is definitely the first step. Calm, stability, it's a good thing. It's a good thing when you are in leadership. It's a good thing when you are a business owner with a team of people. Strategic leadership should feel calmer than the tactical firefighting. So if you are in business, a lot of it is tactical. A lot of it is firefighting. A lot of it is wearing lots of different hats and being able to respond to things very quickly. When you step into strategic leadership, when you step into that CEO mindset as a business owner, it will feel slower. It should feel calmer because it's strategic, it's intentional, it's purposeful. It's looking ahead, not just looking in at today. We want that awareness of looking forward with a focus on today. We do not want to be the crisis manager. We want to be the strategic leader. We want to be as comfortable when things are calm and stable as we are in crisis and chaos. This is another example of leaving an old identity behind to move into and embrace the new levels that we are working at. So if you're hearing me talking this through and this resonates with you, and you too find that calm makes you feel anxious, question for you to consider is where this is part of an old identity and what you want to step into. Now, my client called this the washing machine syndrome, that constant spin, that constant churn, that constant going. It doesn't need to be on all of the time. We can recognize that we've got the skills, we've got the tools, we've got the ability, we've got the confidence that if things happen, we know we can step in, we can handle it, we can deal with it, and the outcome will be good. So we don't need to worry about it before it happens. We've got that calm reassurance that we know how to handle it. So if it happens, we'll handle it. But actually, the best thing we can do right now is step into that level of leadership that is looking ahead and removing the potential risks to the calm and stability. Knowing if we can't remove it, we can reduce it. And when it does happen, we'll be able to lead our teams through it. We've done it before, we can do it again. Worrying about it in the day-to-day isn't helpful. Calm certainly beats the chaos. We know we can handle the chaos. So now we need to maintain the calm. Let me know if that resonates with you. And let me know how you're going to approach it. A Lightbulb 2. The conversation that I had with a client was in the context of going for an interview. But I do think there's some common themes here that will apply to people, even if you're planning on staying where you are for the foreseeable future. And the conversation was around authenticity. When we're preparing for interviews, we do want to make sure that we can demonstrate our knowledge. We do want to demonstrate our skills, and we do want to demonstrate our ability to take action. What we want to make sure is that we are also showing who we are as a person and how we will show up, how we will engage, how we will do the do, because that's what's going to make us different to the other candidates. Now, in the session, we were talking about faking it in interviews, of trying to show up as the person that we think they want, not as who we actually are. A lot of the time, when we go for an interview, we're going for an interview that is at a higher level. And so there are going to be gaps in our knowledge, in our skills, in our experience. And so what we want to do is talk through the transferable skills and experience. We want to talk through how we've done something similar, but there will be elements from a mindset perspective that we are trying to prove that we can handle a level that we've not yet worked at. Now, a lot of the time we have worked at that level. We just haven't had the role title or the pay for it. But when we go for an interview and we're put on the spot, it can feel like we're overreaching and it can feel like we're setting ourselves up to fail. The more we can go in and demonstrate who we are, the more they can see our behavior skills. And the behavior skills are very difficult to train. If we've got gaps in our technical skills, it's much easier for us to be upskilled once we are in that position. We can demonstrate our behavior skills, our attitude, our mindset. The technical skills become a lot less significant because it's much easier to train a technical skills gap than it is to train a behavior skills chap. So this is why the authenticity and showing who we are and how we like to approach things can often really help us in that interview scenario. Being genuine about the level that we've been working at and the experience that we have, and recognizing that there will be gaps. And that's okay. Very few people walk into an interview being able to do absolutely everything in the way that they want to do it. Even if you are going for a like-to-like interview, you're probably doing it with a different department or a different organization. So they're going to have a slightly different way of doing things. You're still going to need to learn on the job. Showing our behavior skills, showing up as our authentic selves, showing them how we like to approach things is so important. And on that note, I think it's probably worth saying here, most of us are going to feel an external pressure to go higher. Society says, once you've got to one level, you should already be working ready for the next level. That is what ambition looks like. Promotion, promotion, promotion. You get one promotion, you start working towards the next one. That's not for everybody. Sometimes we want the horizontal development, not just going up through the organization or building the business to be a certain way, but actually expanding our knowledge, our skills, our experience, expanding it at the level that we are at. And I think the other point that I want to bring up here is that leadership has many levels, and not everybody wants to work at the highest senior leadership level. There's a lot of people who enjoy working at team level. They like the mix of strategic and tactical leadership. They like being more hands-on. They like working with their team. They like seeing the difference that their team is making. Not everybody wants to work their way up to the top of the organizational structure chart. And not every business owner wants a business with hundreds of employees and millions in their turnover. Knowing what good looks like for you, knowing what it is that you want, means that you can work at the level that is going to fulfill you and tick the boxes that you want to tick. So that might mean going for a role that is the same level that you are at, because there's something in that role that excites you. There's something in that role that aligns better with how you like to work, the roles that you like to have, the type of work that you like to do. It is not all about promotion. It is not all about more money. Some people get promoted and realize that this ain't for them. This is not what they thought it was going to be. Looks great on paper, doesn't feel great, not enjoyable, not aligned. Recognizing what kind of role we want to do, where we can be authentic, where we can show up as ourselves, where we can be our best selves. Because when we're our best selves, that's when we perform at our highest. This is positive motivation. We are working towards what ticks the boxes for us. We are moving closer towards what aligns, the things that we are passionate about, the things that motivate us, what looks good for us, what feels good for us, what allows us to show up as our authentic self and work in our best possible way. And when we talk through that in an interview, it makes it much easier for the panel to see how we would fit into that role, how we align to that role and the ways of working, the vision and the values of that team, that department, that organization. When people aren't successful at interview, they often talk like it's a failure. They'll talk like they weren't chosen. But it's better to lose that opportunity if it's not the right fit, because you would be setting yourself up to fail. And that's what the panel are looking for. It's what you need to be looking for when you go for an interview, of looking for a place where you can show up as yourself, where you can align with what matters to you, where you're going to work in a place that what they're working on aligns with what matters to you, where you can be yourself, where you can show up as your best self and do your best work. So you are looking for that in your interview as well. You are looking for it. They are looking for it. And if it doesn't align and they select somebody else, then they're picking what is the best fit. And that means that you are freeing yourself for an opportunity that is going to be a better fit for you. So focus on behavior skills. For success to feel as good as it looks, things need to be in alignment. And you can't do that unless you show up as your authentic self in the interview and show them who you are. Then you'll be able to see whether or not both sides of the table are in alignment. Okay, light bulb 3. What happens when your best work is invisible? Now, this came up in a one-to-one call this week, but it has come up in different ways over the years. What happens when you're a really good leader, so good that actually nobody sees how good things are? When you do a good job and you're preventing crises, you're preventing problems, there's a risk that your work, your good leadership is inherently invisible. If you do your job well, does that make you invisible? So if your systems are running smoothly, your processes are running smoothly, nobody notices. If you prevent a crisis happening, there's no visible achievement. So the crazy thing is that success is the absence of problems. It's very hard to demonstrate. How do you show how good you are? How do you make yourself visible in this kind of scenario? The other element that has actually come up in a one-to-one session a few weeks ago is, how do we show our line manager that we are working at the level that we want them to see us working at? How do we show our line manager that we are working at that strategic level? Because quite often we focus in on the tactical check-ins, the tactical updates, rather than the strategic things that we are working on. So much of the work we do at that higher leadership level is invisible. The budget conversations, the decisions that we make, things that we do on a day-to-day basis that enables and facilitates our team to work at that high performance level. How do we show that? How do we get people to see that? How do people recognize that actually everything that they are not seeing is what makes us really good at what we do? So this happens in a lot of the support function roles like IT, HR, facilities, operations. It's a lot of preventative work rather than reactive firefighting. And actually, the challenge is that when they are really good at what they do, and they are really good at the preventative work and the strategic work, less firefighting is needed. So what that means is there's a lot of work going on, and the better you do it, the more invisible it is. Now, we cannot assume that our good work will speak for itself, especially in this kind of scenario. We cannot assume that our leadership notices how smooth things are running. What we risk is waiting for recognition that never comes. Now, we don't want to seem self-promotional, so how do we approach this? How do we make successes visible without being promotional? How do we demonstrate the impact of all of the preventative work that we are doing? How do you show the value of your leadership maintaining that stability? How do you prove the return on the investment of everything that you are doing? You'll probably notice this in the meetings that you go to. The focus will be on firefighting. The focus will be on where there are problems that need to be solved or decisions that need to be made. There's less attention and less time given to what is stable, what is working, so the innovation that improves things, that makes things better, that makes things more efficient, makes things more effective. So we need strategic positioning rather than we kept things going, everything went as expected. That's invisible. That's not going to create the visibility that you're looking for. You want to talk about what was prevented or saved or gained as a result. That's what helps make it visible. You want to talk about the impact. What business outcomes were you able to achieve? You are shifting the language rather than the tactical work that has been done. You want to talk about the impact that you have created. And in the same way, when you're having conversations with your line manager, talk about the strategic work that you are doing. Talk about the tasks and activities that demonstrate the level that you are working at. Making invisible work visible is a leadership skill. It's also a communication skill. Create regular impact reports rather than just status updates. There's probably some language shift. Look at how your seniors discuss the operations of the business when they are at that strategic level. When you prevent things happening, talk about what you've saved in terms of costs, time, or risk. When you have implemented something new, talk about the outcomes of that innovation. Tie it to the overall business goals. If you're reactive, you're going to be waiting for your good work to be noticed. If you're intentional, you'll be able to proactively demonstrate the impact that you create. Reactive is waiting until you're asked and then responding when you get given a question in a meeting. Intentional is providing those value updates. A lot of you will feel that visibility is vanity, that it's showing off. You need to demonstrate your worth. You need to show your value. You need to share and report what you are doing, especially if you are in a type of role that the better you are, the less they see. Okay. Those are my 3 light bulbs for this week. 3 very different light bulbs. So I would, as always, be interested in what your takeaways are for this week. I'd love to know what your light bulb is from this episode. And now you know what you know. What will you do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. And if you can, commit to it in the next 7 days. Before the next episode comes out, can you implement this one small action? I would love to hear it. If it helps your accountability, share with me. I would love to hear what you are planning to show up and do differently. And I'll be back with another episode next week. And those are your 3 takeaways for this week. Before you go, ask yourself, what's my light bulb moment from this? And now that I know what I know, what will I do differently? Choose one action, however small, and commit to it. That's how overwhelmed and reactive becomes aligned and intentional. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week on the next episode of The Lightbulb.